This is going to serve as a follow-up to my Assassin's Creed Brotherhood retrospective I uploaded back in November. So originally I wanted to talk about this before, but obviously the video ended up being 3 hours long. So I wasn't able to fit it in without drawing it out that much further. So if you haven't watched that one, no worries. If you already know the general plot for the original game, you have more than enough context to get into this video. But you can also just watch that one whenever you get a chance to, whether before or after this. So this DLC story, unlike the main game, does not have a novel adaptation of it that doesn't loosely tie its canon into it. And so that actually makes it a lot easier for me to script out and a lot more streamlined into this video, so I don't have to do nearly as much back and forth as I did in that original video. I also have to mention it as well. Assassin's Creed is pretty loose with their canon, so this story does take place within a time gap between Sequence 8 and Sequence 9 during the year 1506. So if we're only going by the game's continuity, there's very little that's shown between those two events, but the series also tends to take pretty much a lot of transmedia as canon unless it contradicts the game's version. So if we're putting the timelines together, it would be like 1504, Ezio takes the Apple of Eden into the temple. Da Vinci and Machiavelli travel with Ezio to search for Cesare. 1506, Cesare escapes prison. 1506, Leonardo goes home. 1506, Ezio returns to Rome for the Da Vinci Disappearance DLC. Yeah, that's pretty stuff. So this leaves a huge plot hole or an inconsistency, as it doesn't really make much sense for Leonardo to return home and then Ezio following him back, only for Ezio to return to Machiavelli. This all takes place within a very short period of time. So effectively the game's version of events retcons some, if not most, of the novel's version. And you can make an argument that the whole sequence of the novel is just out completely. But Leonardo does make a comment of,
"Did not know you had returned to Roma,"
at the start of the DLC sequence, so it's at bare minimum implied that some version of these events took place. Either way, I'd still highly recommend reading that part, because outside of the two blatant filler sections, when it actually focuses on the actual plot itself, those were probably some of the more interesting parts of it. So that's how the story is going to be framed for the purposes of this video. My god, they should have just made it take place in like 1508 or something after Cesare's death. There was no reason for it to take place within 1506. So with all of that preamble out of the way, let's begin. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, the Da Vinci Disappearance. As far as the modern day storyline goes, this does technically happen within the modern day, I guess. So despite the Animus story taking place before the end of Sequence 9, we do hear the modern day crew noting that Desmond is active within the Animus, so implying that this is before he slips into the Black Room in Revelations. How all of that works, I really don't want to think about how convoluted that is, so I'm just going to skip right past it. It's not too relevant and I don't want to spend too much time on it. As we load into the memory, Ezio pays a visit to Leonardo's workshop, with Leonardo mistaking Ezio at first for Salai, his assistant. Ezio is there as Leonardo can get him some reliable transportation, but Leonardo doesn't want to leave the workshop without Salai, so Ezio volunteers to go and grab him as he's off gambling. So Ezio rides off to the Sleeping Fox as he walks into the game of dice. As Salai is crushing it, Ezio approaches him. He tells Salai to leave the game, and after some resistance, Salai relents and follows Ezio. There are 3 robed men that were suspected of Salai of cheating, so they follow Salai and Ezio out of the inn and start a fight. After the fight is done, Salai realizes that was Ezio and proceeds to go ahead, as Ezio warns that they have to get to Leonardo quickly. Now that we have to go across the map while random ambushes of guys fight us, it's fun, but I don't really have any strong opinions on it one way or another, so I'm just gonna go right past it. When we reach Salai, Ezio mentioned that he's seen people in similar roads before, but honestly, I have no clue what he's talking about. The only guess I could think of is during sequence 12 or 13 of Assassin's Creed 2, when Ezio is after the Orsi brothers, or the Bonfire of the Vanities. And I know it's not the followers of Romulus, because they weren't really after the apple, nor were they dressed similarly at all. As Salai reveals, he knows about the Piece of Eden. Leonardo told him so, thus revealing that our encounter at the end wasn't just for mere gambling, it was meant to get Salai. As they spread across the city, they see robed men are spread across there. giving us visual indicator this is bigger than we initially thought it was. More exposition reveals that Leonardo has been exploring the catacombs and found an entrance to a temple that contains the perfect number. Once they make it back to Leonardo's workshop, Leonardo is missing. Ezio inquires more about the temple, but Salai doesn't really know. There's a text on the floor, but Salai can't not read it. It talks about paintings that were at the villa during the attack. 6 of them contain the information that Ezio needs, so he has to pay a visit to Lucrezia Borgia with her new husband to figure out where they are. Ezio arrives at the Bel Riguardo, I cannot pronounce that, palazzo, and sees as Lucrezia is arriving, just escaping an attack for her life. Seeing as the Borgia have completely lost power, with Rodrigo dead and Cesare in prison, Lucrezia is the last of them and any who would want to take her life. So she increases security and heads on inside, transitioning us into our gameplay section. As a parkour guy, I find this section very fun. Its structure is similar to that of a tomb section where it's insanely linear, while I'd say it's on the easier side as it goes for parkour. Though, if I were to give it some criticism, I'd wish for it to be a bit harder, as there were supposed to be guards all over the place, but it's pretty easy to get through them without worrying about detection. I've had harder times during the Leonardo War Machine mission. So I know it's very possible, but on the other side of the coin, more casual players may have had a harder time with this sequence than I did, so it could just be a case of me knowing this level too much to get through it. When Ezio arrives, he is greeted by Lucrezia, who does throw some shade at him, but ultimately attempts to seduce Ezio. So Ezio takes advantage of this opportunity to get Lucrezia to talk, as pretty boy Ezio turns on the charm and works his magic without actually sleeping with her, but instead of tying her up to a curtain as she spills out the information he needs. Ezio ends it by telling her,
"No man can heal your pain. You must do so on your own."
Which really ties in with the romance with Caterina subplot that happened during the main game. If you remember, in the novel version of the story, Ezio spent years still in love with Caterina and just not accepting the fact that she used him, thinking that Caterina will be the fix for what Christina was. He ultimately had to rely on himself to get over it. It's such a simple line, but it gives us so much insight on where Ezio's character is at this point and where he's at mentally at this point in his life. Transitioning us into the next gameplay section, we get an escape sequence. We get this really nice parkour sequence as guards are chasing after you, while guards themselves aren't really anything special as you're just avoiding them the whole time. The parkour itself is pretty awesome, adding a bit of tension as you're being chased by the guards the entire time. If you're going too slow, there's always going to be a chance that they'll go throw rocks at you and ruin your flow. Adding in back and side ejects, which are fairly simple, but I still quite find it fun to do. Ending off with a leap of faith, Ezio acquires the first of the 5 paintings. During Ezio's conversation with Lucrezia, she mentioned that she gave one of the paintings to her old lover Patrizio. So Ezio's next target is him, and he's located in the Vatican district. As Ezio arrives, he stumbles on a conversation between him and one of the Rome men that Patrizio is about to sell it off to, which starts off the community's least favorite type of mission, the tailing mission. More than likely, you've probably watched the main retrospective, so I don't really feel the need to rehash everything I talked about tailing missions there, but to keep it short, I actually like these missions as long as they're not being overused within it. This is one of the better tailing missions, as you're not simply just following your target around, but there are plenty of robed men walking around that completely ignore your notoriety meter, thus turning this from a simple following mission and adding more engagement to it, which is very surprising how this method didn't really get incorporated in more future installments. During this mission, Ezio eavesdrops on a conversation between Patrizio as he's trying to get rid of the painting so he can cut all ties with Lucrezia, feeling insulted that she even give him a gift after marrying another man. The robe man responds about talking about the ways men are strange, and Hermes teaches them that studying could lead to harmony, which confirms that they are the cult of Hermes. Going back to Assassin's Creed Wiki for any information on them, most of the information tends to come from Assassin's Creed Odyssey, in which I refuse to touch that game with a 10-foot pole. It also came out after the DLC was made, so that's going to be my excuse, as I'm trying to keep in mind the original intention behind this instead of what was written later on. Once arriving at the destination, Patricio has a generational crash out and attempts to destroy the painting. Before he's able to, he's killed off by one of the nameless cult members and takes the painting, as the leader is commanding the painting to be taken care of, leading us to our next gameplay section of chasing, and oh my god, he can parkour. So much for taking care of the painting. Ezio kills him off and takes the painting, leaving us with 2 of the 5 paintings. The next target is Francesco Colonna's painting, which presumably his wife is the one answering the door. She informs Ezio that the bank has foreclosed them and the paintings were sold off to a merchant who was about to set sail. So Ezio goes to the harbor. When he arrives, he realizes that the merchant is Duccio, the same man who cheated on Claudia during the intro of Assassin's Creed 2. After provoking Ezio by reopening old wounds and talking about Claudia, it's kind of amazing how like 20 plus years have passed and Duccio is still somehow hurt over a scuffle.
Cazzo! Why are you just standing there? Hit him!
It's very interesting that Duccio mentions Ezio's father, which gives us an insight on how much damage the original conspiracy was to kill the Auditores has tainted the name. Most people have never found out the truth of why they were executed. It kind of retroactively strengthens the impact of the last game's narrative. Once the fight is over, Duccio reveals that 2 of the paintings were sold off to a cardinal and still somehow has the audacity to continue to provoke Ezio by talking about Claudia, who proceeds to knock him out and go to retrieve the painting from a ship that is crowded with more Cult of Hermes members waiting on their leader Marco. The same man who we saw the last mission confirmed the validity of the painting. After infiltrating the ship, Ezio takes the painting and heads off to find the art viewing.
Buongiorno. Have you ladies heard of an art viewing somewhere in the city?
You have returned to Roma.
With just enough time to visit you.
Ezio arrives at the Rosy and Fiore to inquire about the art viewing. Claudia greets him and tells him that it's in the Castello and she can secure him an entry even if it's limited access. It's so cool to see this interaction between the two, as it serves as a great benchmark for their character arc. In the main narrative, the relationship was defined by friction. Claudia strove for independence while Ezio clung to the protective big brother role. But seeing them now, it's very rewarding to see the shift in their dialogue. As Claudia's character arc reaches its end, Ezio fully embraced Claudia as an equal and let it evolve into something far healthier and collaborative. It's kind of funny when Ezio arrives, you're supposed to get an invite out of a random chest that 2 guards are just guarding for some reason. Apparently whatever was in that chest has to be guarded on the outside in plain view. It's obviously just there for gameplay reasons, as you're supposed to stealth through it. It's kind of funny to think about it. So funny that it wasn't even there, but a courier was actually about to deliver it. Initializing a chase sequence with not only the guard chasing after you, but the Cult of Hermes apparently after you as well. So that's fun. The stealth sequence was fine. It was small and it didn't really last that long. Then for whatever reason, the chase sequence I lost a few times. I don't even know if I was just overthinking it or if it was actually hard. With the invitation received, Ezio uses Claudia's girls and they infiltrate the art viewing and search for Leonardo's paintings so he can mark them for the girls to steal. I do like that since you're allowed in here, this is really the only time that you're in the Castello without it being a restricted area. But alas, it's short-lived. After the first painting is found, the upper levels of the Castello are restricted to cardinals. But given Ezio has snuck in here multiple times, at this point, this is just his second home. After marking 2 of the paintings, somehow the courtesans managed to sneak those out of there. Seriously, how did they manage to pull that heist off? There were guards everywhere. The mission itself was fine. When it comes to infiltrating the Castello, it's probably the weakest of them. I find it cool that narratively that we're actually allowed in, but then the problem becomes that the lack of suspicion marks finding and marking the paintings fairly easy. So instead of simply marking them, what if we just had a similar situation in the main story that the person had their invitation stolen, so it becomes a restricted area once more, forcing the player to hide in crowds and cardinals, with also marking the paintings of the courtesans will be unavailable. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. Narratively, it serves its purpose, but gameplay-wise, I did find it lacking. But hey, at least we have 5 paintings now. With all of the paintings gathered, Salai and Ezio struggled to find any writing on them, but Salai remembers that Leonardo was experimenting with invisible ink and asked Ezio to use Eagle Vision.
You know about that too?
Instead of relying on Eagle Vision as a catch-all solution, we have to look around the paintings themselves to find the hidden drawings, giving us a nice throwback to Subject 16's puzzles. It's a nice refresher from the standard gameplay loop. One detail that I found interesting, it looks like the paintings are scans from the actual Leonardo da Vinci painting. It's an extra touch of authenticity that was worth highlighting here. Kinda wish they attempted to de-age it at least a little bit, so it wouldn't be so obvious though. With all the drawings found, Ezio redraws them on separate papers to recreate an image of the catacombs, albeit with parts missing from the Villa attack. So it's a jigsaw puzzle, so it really depends on the type of person you are. I actually enjoy these type of puzzles, so I found it quite fun to do, even if I didn't get the 100% sync. Overall, great mission, probably my favorite mission, maybe second favorite mission so far. Actually makes you switch on the gamer brain.
Here, the entrance to the catacombs.
Go. Bring him back to me.
Hang on, old friend. I am coming.
As we enter the catacombs, we start yet another parkour section, as we hear Leonardo getting beaten senseless by the cult as they're trying to find the entrance to the temple. It's a pretty solid section. During the climb, we are hearing the conversation between the leader, Ercole Massimo, as he's convinced whatever is behind that door will help lead mankind into a better future, as it would break down all social classes and raise even the lowest among people to be like gods. In which we have to talk about this conversation. In the main video, we've already talked at length about the assassins and the Templar ideology, so I will not retread all of that here. However, I do like the idea of introducing a third faction. The Cult of Hermes, they occupy this strange middle ground, seeking peace through free will like the assassins, yet somehow sharing the Templar's view that people can't be trusted on their own, and the temple is a fast-track way to enlighten the people to do that, and similar to that of the Templars, are completely cutthroat about it. Ironic considering that they are a literal cult that refuses to tolerate any opposing view, convinced of their own infallibility. It's an easy to miss conversation, so I highly recommend you listen to that in full before getting to the next point. Once Ezio makes his entrance, he has a very valid crash out as his best friend is damn near half dead with the beating he's taken. Massimo attempts to ask Ezio to have Leonardo show them the entrance himself, when Ezio refuses, leading us into a nice fight sequence. Seeing Ezio easily slice through his men, Massimo then cowers as Ezio finishes him off, triggering the first and only Animus Corridor. Massimo mistakes Ezio's opposition as a hatred of knowledge, but Ezio corrects him. Not that he has any issues with pursuing truth, but he wants people to retain the right to choose it for themselves. Massimo counters that without forced enlightenment, people are doomed as they will keep themselves within the cycle of war, pain, heartache, and suffering, to never be able to break the cycle. While Ezio doesn't directly reply to this statement, we can infer, based on prior knowledge, where his stance is. Ezio wants people to gain knowledge on their own, and he has enough faith in humanity that it will make progress on its own terms. To Ezio, a slow-driven evolution is better than the control of a small elite dictating the fate of everyone. And just like any other person, they're just as valuable. Ezio unbounds Leonardo. Leonardo resolves to get whatever number is in that temple, so to prevent any bad actors from using it for malicious reasons. After slight resistance from Ezio, Ezio relents and Leonardo opens the entrance. Going into our next parkour section, it finally takes a turn back to peak as we have to solve another puzzle. I find it really cool that they brought back the music from Assassin's Creed 1 with Acre's Underworld, which really sets the tone for this. Something to note, as we're going through the rooms, Leonardo talks about Pythagorean beliefs, but not gonna lie, I really just don't really care like that. I just don't have really thoughts toward them. They work for the context that they're in, as there's just describing the rooms pretty much, but narratively, there's really not much to dissect with them that I find relevant. I said it before and I'll say it again. They really cooked with these parkour sections, as each room is different and gets progressively harder, with the lava room really making you feel the tension behind each leap as you don't want to fall down and have to retread all of that lost ground. And with all that done, it all culminates in a final scene where Ezio and Leonardo step into the temple, and Ezio activates the temple to reveal the numbers. 43, 3919N 752742W. Leonardo sees nothing but random digits, but Ezio understands their weight, to a degree. That again, he's merely a conduit for Desmond. Unlike his first confusing encounter with Minerva at the vault, Ezio had to learn to make peace with this role, that he is a small part in a much bigger picture. Rather than dwelling on this, Ezio chooses to instead pivot to Leonardo, off to talking about his own life, resulting in a touching final walk between the two friends. Had this been Ezio's final departure from the series, it would have made for such a touching conclusion. Of course, we still got revelation, so leading us back with the voiceover from the modern day team giving us a command to sedate Desmond as they got the information they needed. But what was that information? If you remember the numbers, those were coordinates. If you plug those on Google Maps, it actually leads into a seemingly random spot in New York. But now we know from hindsight that this was our first tease of Assassin's Creed 3, as this would be the entrance of the Grand Temple.
Ezio, what are you not telling me?
What else are you working on?
Well, I have begun several dissection studies. Then King Louis XII seems interested in hiring me as an engineer. Oh, yes, I'm thinking of repainting the St. John lost in the Villa fire. Salai would model for it again, of course. Then, perhaps I will study a woman with child to see how her body changes.
Interesting. Tell me more.
Overall, I do find this DLC worth experiencing in 2026. Sure, some of the level design might fall short from the main game's standards, but I think its brief runtime, along with the ending of the parkour section, leaves it off on a high note, and the story itself is engaging enough. Now that Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is essentially done, I can maybe focus on smaller stories that I would like to cover, whether that's just individual scenes that I find noteworthy, or just, like I said in the beginning, I'm also having another big project in which you can guess what that big project is, and I don't know when that's going to be done, but it's in the works right now, and so we're going to be working on that soon. It's going to be pretty big. If you haven't seen the Brotherhood retrospective, again, thank you for watching this video, and I'd much go click on the screen, whether I don't know where it's going to be, right here, depending on where this is, but click on the icon or at the end screen video, it'll probably be right there too, and you can watch it right there. It's 3 hours long. It's very informative. That includes stuff from the novel that isn't even seen in the game, so I very much recommend watching that video if you haven't already. If you have watched it, thank you for watching that, and thank you for coming back for this one. And so make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe, it really much helps out the channel. We're trying to make this thing grow. And
Editing Chris here. I wanted to pop in and thank you for the 100 subscribers. I was actually editing this video as it was happening, so I just want to pop in quickly at the end and thank you for that, because I don't think I'm going to make a full video just for that, but I just still wanted to show my appreciation either way. So thank you for being here, and if you are new here, thank you for watching this video in general. So continue on.
I will see you all in the next video. Continue being beautiful, wonderful people.